was singing with my brothers and sisters. I was singing with my friends. We can all sing a new song together, for the circle never.
Sing with us if you know the chorus. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better world awaiting. We can make it if we try.
Take it, John. I was born down in the valley where the sun refused to shine. Now I'm climbing to the highland, gonna make that mountain mine.
Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better world awaiting. We can make it if we try. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better world awaiting. We can make it if we try. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you.
Good morning. Y'all give them a big hand. And we're celebrating Appalachia, so you ought to give a big hoot or a howdy or a holler or something like that. So, woohoo! That's Dr. Ernest Lee, Dr. Larry Osborne, and Mr. John Larson. So I bet we could probably convince them to come back up here in a few minutes and sing again. But for the next few minutes, we're going to talk about Appalachia. What is Appalachia? I know in LA 101 you've been talking about various aspects of Carson Newman's legacy, and Appalachia is certainly one of the pivotal foundations of our legacy. So, there we go, Appalachia. One thing you might want to notice on your university seal, and I apologize, the slide still has college, but right above the torch is a word, if you can make it out, Appalachian. Okay, Appalachian. We all know that the seal also contains the words truth, beauty, and goodness, but what joins all those together is the sense of place, where the college is located, where many of its students originate, and at least a place that you're going to call home for the next 4 or 5 years. So I don't know what kinds of questions will come up on your exam or test from today, so if you want me to repeat something, let me know. We're going to talk about several historical figures. You might want to jot down their names. I'm sure Dr. Dye will let you know that. But you're welcome to contact me if any of this isn't clear. Okay? All right, so here we go. First of all, we're going to make you exercise. Now that you've finished rattling around your papers and all of that, if everybody will do me a favor and stand up. Stand up and stretch. Come on in, get a seat in the back, make yourself at home. Y'all can sit down here. All right. Now, when I call your state, and feel free to give an appropriate shout out for your state, how you deem appropriate, I'd like for you to sit down. When I call your state, if you will sit down, celebrate your state. Anybody here from Ohio? Woohoo! All right, sit down. Pennsylvania. Woohoo! Come on, you can do better than that. Pennsylvania? All right. How about Maryland? New York? Come on, New Yorkers. I know you're louder than that. New York? Kentucky? All right. Virginia. Virginia. West Virginia. Tennessee. Georgia. There you go. Alabama. Roll Tide. Mississippi. North Carolina. South Carolina. All right. Now, look around you, please. Look around you, please. Our wonderful friends and colleagues who are standing up are our only guests today who are not from an area deemed Appalachian. Okay? So thank you very much. Everybody may sit down. But I think that's point one that your LA 101 instructors want you to appreciate is when we talk about Appalachia, I think sometimes we think we're just talking about East Tennessee or North Carolina or Kentucky or West Virginia. But the reality is if you'll study the map, that will be made available to you. This is an Appalachian range that reaches from northern Georgia, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, all the way up to New York. The end of the App Trail is in Maine, so probably I should have asked you to sit down if you're from Maine. So this is a huge area of the country with some deep cultural contributions to science, to art, to literature, and of course the natural beauty. So point two that we'd also want to celebrate today, and I know many of us would like to be out in the natural beauty of Appalachia, but many of you have experienced it. Just for a moment, if you can see it, I mean, think about the Appalachian Mountain Range. Think about the Great Smokies. Sorry, we're working here. And how beautiful they are this time of the year. You know, that is part of Appalachia. There's a reason that the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the single most visited national park in the United States. Thank God it's open again. Contribute to Friends of the Smokies, because I wouldn't rely on the federal government. That's a sidebar comment. That's not on the exam. But support your park, okay? Beautiful. Who would rather, be honest, who would rather be hiking Mount LeConte today than prepping for your English 201 test? Me too, because I have to grade them, right? But it is a place of amazing beauty, and that's something we want to celebrate. This is a place you're calling home for the next 4 years, 5 years. Maybe this is your home permanently, but a beautiful landscape. But the reality of Appalachia is, even though it is very beautiful, if we're really honest with ourselves, it's also a place that's often ridiculed. It's a place that's stereotyped as being backwards. Some of you have been places where people were surprised that you were wearing shoes, or they made jokes about the fact that you were wearing shoes, or that you weren't dating your cousin or your sister. So for the next few moments, we want to talk a little bit about the stereotypes that have been sort of inflicted upon this area, because it seems to be kind of the last place that it's politically correct to make fun of Appalachia. No one outside of Appalachia seems to have their back bristle up. You know, you'll have Friends episodes that will make jokes about Appalachian cocktail hour when they think cousins are dating, or you'll have NASCAR being ridiculed in Talladega Nights or whatever pop culture movies are out. So for a few minutes I wanted to call up a student who's a film studies major who is going to be studying at Baylor University next fall in their film department, but has also done a lot of his work in Appalachian work. Mr. Clint Keller, is going to come up and join me, and you know, maybe Dr. Lee might want to join us too. He's the director of the Appalachian Center here on campus. And I just wanted to pose a question, see where they might go with this, in regards to what kinds of stereotypes about Appalachia, Appalachian culture. This one's on here, I think. So, Mr. Keller, what have you experienced as stereotypes of Appalachia that are funny, disturbing? How have you labeled?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of negative stereotypes. I mean, racism, incest, but I think really the through line through all of them is ignorance. And I mean, people think that Appalachians are ignorant, and that's not the case. I mean, there has been a historical precedent of there's not been a lot of higher learning in Appalachia traditionally. There's been a lot of uneducated people, but that doesn't mean they're ignorant. They were innovative, smart, and they made a life for themselves here. And I think that's something that shouldn't be overlooked.
Dr. Lee?
I had a comment on that. I was telling my 301 night class last week about my wife and I were in Italy this summer. It was our anniversary. And we sat at a table with a couple from England and a couple from Canada. And when they found out where we were from, the couple from England immediately looked under the table and said, "Well, do you have shoes on?" And the couple from Canada looked at my wife and said, "Well, is she your cousin?" It's a good thing I'm a peaceable Quaker, you know. But it's not just something that I hear in the United States, but it's all over the world. Everywhere that I've traveled, there's this stereotype that's perpetuated by films, by all kinds of images. If I said I was from Tennessee, that's what I got. Unless I mentioned it to a cab driver that I was from Tennessee, and he would say Jack Daniels.
And I mean, I'd also like to say that I spent a long time trying to avoid my Appalachian heritage. I mean, I was ashamed of it. And it took me a long time to reconcile that and to appreciate it. And I mean, so many of the traditions and stories and folk tales and music of Appalachia is disappearing because people of our generation aren't preserving it anymore. And I mean, I think it's very important that we all try to, talk to our grandparents, learn the stories, learn the things that happened, the history, their music, because if we don't preserve it, it's going to disappear with our generation and we won't have it anymore.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. All right, so stereotypes of Appalachia. Hillbilly grocery shopping is what it says. It's blowing the head off a rabbit. Do you have to have a mullet to be a true Appalachian? Now, stereotype or pop culture icon. Do y'all know who that is? Popcorn Smith, right? Thank you, sorry. Father of moonshine. Okay, so we all are well familiar with the fact that there are, one more, can't forget Daisy Duke. Sorry, not used to microphones. Yeah, when I thought about dressing up today, it was too cold, so we had to slide. And I did wear shoes. Stereotype. So we are familiar with the stereotypes of Appalachia, but I think Clint made a beautiful point. There is a legacy and a heritage of ingenuity and wisdom and brilliance in Appalachia. There are scientists from Appalachia. There are politicians from Appalachia. There are musicians. So many well-known names who have changed the world with their legacy. So in the next few moments, we're going to talk about some of the important historical figures from Appalachia, kind of celebrate them, celebrate you. You all are Appalachian legacy. You're going to go out through the four corners of the world and represent this area. So we're going to celebrate that spirit. As a segue into a few more slides, we have the honor today of having a very well-known Appalachian poet and novelist, writer, Dr. Susan Underwood, with us today. Some of you are probably graced to have her in class, but outside of Carson Newman University, she is highly respected as a voice of Appalachia. And she's agreed to share with us a poem about her experience. It is autobiographical as an Appalachian woman, as an Appalachian girl and woman and scholar. So please welcome Dr. Susan Underwood.
This is actually a poem about Carson Newman, too, a course that I took. Those of you who may complain about your grades sometimes. I was raised to be a good girl, a good Appalachian girl, and I found the older I got, the more I needed to raise a little Cain. So there's a dirty word in this poem, and you're just going to have to deal with it. This is called assimilation, which if you're of a different culture, different ethnicity, different place, you're asked to assimilate a lot of times, and I'm rebelling against that somewhat. Assimilation. Around here sometime not long ago, we traded in lightning bug for the average firefly. In the etymology of mountain entomology, we've lost a few syllables here and there. Why use 3 when 2 will do just fine? That doesn't explain cicada, which we picked up last time 17-year locusts came buzz-sawing around. When we were kids, we called them jarflies, a poetic name enough for efficient double duty. To name their havoc we swore could shake black walnuts off the trees, and describe as well their amber shells, replicating their poses like fragile, empty glass. Some people don't like that bug's primeval rasp any more than they abide a primitive tongue. In college, for a degree in communications, they enrolled me in a voice and diction course taught by Appalachian people who had learned not to sound Appalachian. I couldn't pronounce I to suit any ear suited toward standard pronunciation, so I didn't earn the A. Held back by that letter of the alphabet which stands for me, my consciousness, my ego, and my id, the one who must stand before God alone, capitalized in English, a totem to explain the self. The voice I hear recorded every now and then I don't recognize as mine, my dialect evolving toward the 6 o'clock news, avoiding the slack, condescending mimicry I might elicit, the dreaded open-mouthed gape, or worse, that coast-to-coast question, "Are you from Texas?" And the worst ever, "Where the hell are you from?" Like a chameleon, which has 4 syllables, I survive by being difficult to read, code shifting as fast as NASCAR drivers change lanes. But in my own preferred slow element, I think like a hellbender, that southern mountain lizard. My accent when I talk to my mother, my father, my family, finds me under a cool, homey rock, nowhere near the ire that drives us to be alike. There I can hide from the bright, shiny lights, spiraling along the highways like sidewinding vipers, the ones that threaten my demise.
And I highly encourage you to take one of Dr. Underwood's classes or attend one of her poetry readings. For the next few minutes then, we're going to end by celebrating some other voices from Appalachia, some other influences from Appalachia, and then encourage you to come to events at the Appalachian Center. When you leave chapel today, look across the street right beside Burnett Dorm, and to the left you'll see a sweet little A-frame 1920s-ish granny house. That's the App Center. And that's where you can go to play music with these wonderful gentlemen and women. Whoops, should I back away from that? Is that what I do? I don't use microphones in class. I'll do this. So the App Center, there's concerts there, there's poetry readings, there's presentations from Friends of the Smokies, and there's hands-on clogging classes in the past, so I hear, and dulcimer strumming. So all kinds of wonderful activities you can come to and celebrate and kind of let loose a little bit. For the next few minutes, again, though, let's celebrate some voices from Appalachia. Some you've heard of, some perhaps not. Sequoia. Anybody here with Native American, specifically Cherokee heritage? Absolutely. Fantastic. I mean, so you have a group of people who are not only ostracized because they're Appalachian, they're ostracized by other Appalachians because they're Indians, right? Native Americans, Cherokee. But here you have Sequoia, who single-handedly in 1821 develops the Cherokee syllabary, the Cherokee alphabet. The colleges, many colleges in North Carolina are beginning to offer this again as a foreign language. Western Carolina has a wonderful partnership with Cherokee, North Carolina, and they're teaching Cherokee. So wouldn't that be great to invite them over to the App Center and we can all learn some of your native language. So Cherokee, Sequoia, a voice from Appalachia. Okay. We've all heard of David Crockett, Davy Crockett. Maybe you sang the song as a kid. He killed him a bar when he was only 3, and maybe that's apocryphal. But he certainly has captured the spirit of an international community through film and through legend. If you're from Texas, perhaps you pay homage to the fact that he fought in the war for Texas independence. If you're of Mexican heritage, you have a very different feel for Davy Crockett, more than likely. But certainly a voice from Appalachia noted for his hunting and storytelling, that you might be familiar with. Who went to Farragut High School? Anybody? Farragut? Not much recruit Farragut. Oh, yay, well done. Admiral, shout out. Here's your Admiral, David Farragut, a flag officer of the United States Navy during the American Civil War. Usually paraphrased, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead was his motto, and it's still the motto of the U.S. Navy. So, you know, good old boy from right down the road, our Farragut brother up in the balcony. Oops, sorry, there he was. Thought I was showing him to you. All right, Dolly Parton. She was in a wreck 2 days ago. She's okay. She'll be here. She was going to come. She sends her regrets. You know, she has her doctoral degree from Carson Newman, but she wasn't able to attend. Maybe we'll get her here next year. But Dolly Parton, whether you like her music or not, the woman is a phenomenal philanthropist. Who all received books from the Imagination Library growing up? Raise your hand high. Okay, yeah. If you're unfamiliar with the Imagination Library, I think it's now in 10 states. But a child born in Sevier County, when she started this, from the age of 1 month till his or her 5th birthday, received a book a month. Because she believes reading is absolutely the key to freedom and the key to language, the key to knowing who you are. So as a philanthropist, many of us have had jobs at Dollywood. One of my first jobs was clogging at Silver Dollar City that became Dollywood. But she is a businesswoman. She spreads aspects of Appalachia. Now she would admit she plays up sometimes the Appalachian stereotype. Many of us have heard her say, you know, it takes a lot of money to look this cheap. And I like looking this cheap. Some of us remember, you all don't, but when she was on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, you know, Jay Leno's predecessor, and he asked her, are you not sick of all the dumb blonde jokes? And she said, not at all, because I know I'm not dumb and I know I'm not blonde. You know, and I've got plenty of money. So, Dolly Parton, one of your Carson Newman alum. How many have seen October Sky? Or maybe you've read Rocket Boys, right? So you've got the scientist Homer Hadley Hickam, Vietnam veteran, former NASA engineer, but a fantastic writer and scientist who has Appalachian heritage. Okay. Maybe you're into music. Maybe you love Bessie Smith, you know, the Empress of the Blues, the most popular female blues singer of the 1920s and 30s. She's iconic. She's amazing. She's Appalachian. How about novelists? How about Cormac McCarthy, an American novelist and playwright with 10 novels? Probably the one you might be familiar with, The Road. You know, The Road. He was born in Rhode Island, yes, but moved to Tennessee, to Knoxville, where he attended the University of Tennessee. Never graduated, but attended. But again, has his roots in Appalachia and writes about Appalachia. Mary Breckinridge, born in 1881 in Memphis, so the other side of our wonderful state, but an American nurse and midwife who founded the Frontier Nursing Service. Many of you are nursing majors. You know, Carson Newman is the #1 supplier of nurses for the Army at this point. So perhaps paying homage to another Appalachian who knew the importance of quality medical care. Have wonderful nursing students here, wonderful nursing professors here who celebrate what Mary Breckinridge was all about. Miles Horton, American educator, socialist, co-founder of the Highlander Folk School, very famous for his role in the Civil Rights Movement. He taught and heavily influenced many of the leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. Rosa Parks herself studied with Horton shortly before her decision to keep her seat on the bus. So a pivotal voice, but again, an Appalachian voice. James Agee. Still can't help but cry a little bit when I walk down in Knoxville and see where they tore his house down a few years ago. But James Agee, another famous novelist, most famous for A Death in the Family in 1957 that won the Pulitzer Prize. If you've not read that, read it. It's a bit of a heartbreak about a little boy whose father's passed away, but it's a book about the triumph of the human spirit and the pain of grief and finding joy through that. And then how about Pearl S. Buck? From Hillsborough, West Virginia. She grew up in China with her missionary parents, most famous perhaps for The Good Earth, won the Pulitzer Prize, but also won the Nobel Prize in Literature. So again, a voice from Appalachia, certainly not ignorant, certainly not backward, certainly not stupid. You know, these are amazing people. This is part of your culture, part of your heritage, part of the heritage that's celebrated on our school's seal. Okay? So in close, we do invite you to come to the Appalachian Center, again, right across the street. You'll notice a quilt patch on the side of the Appalachian Center. If you ever want to go on a scavenger hunt, you're always looking for something fun to do, I know. Pick up a brochure. How many of the quilt blocks are there around? Over 200, okay. These are on the sides of barns, these are on the sides of buildings, there's one on the side of the App Center. Amazing kind of scavenger hunt to see these paintings that are replicating, imitating the wonderful quality craftsmanship of quilters. So look for the quilt, and that's the Appalachian Center. Okay. You can come and hear our fine musicians again, and I'm going to encourage them in a moment to come sing with us, and you're going to sing with them a time or two at the App Center. You can come for some poetry readings. There'll be several more coming up this semester. In fact, on November 7th at 7:30, even though he's not Appalachian, he has a great appreciation for Irish and Scots-Irish heritage of Appalachia. Lorcan Collins from Dublin is going to be coming over doing a reading at the Appalachian Center. So you might want to put that on your calendars if you're into your Scots-Irish heritage, or if you're interested in Ireland. That'll be November 7th. Okay. There'll be art exhibits. This was one from last year by Ricky Bean, a local artist. Right now there's a wonderful exhibit on woodworking tools, and Professor Bill Houston will be doing a workshop soon in an afternoon and demonstrating those handcrafted tools and the artistry of woodworking. So that might interest you as well. And then again, poetry readings. This is a wonderful young poet, Jesse Graves, who's currently at ETSU, but came and read last year at Homecoming. Hopefully he'll be back maybe in the spring, maybe next fall, but phenomenal young voice of Appalachian poetry that you'll have the opportunity to hear. We have an Appalachian novelist coming March 7th, Wayne Caldwell, who works in a hardware store in Asheville, North Carolina, wrote his first novel when he was 50 and is receiving rave reviews. So you've got a lot of opportunities to sponsor the Appalachian Steeple, the Appalachian Center, to celebrate the work Dr. Lee has done as the Appalachian Center Director, and just to celebrate what it is to be part of this place. Okay? So in closing, what is Appalachia? You are Appalachia. Carson Newman University is Appalachia, whether you call it home for 4 years, 40, or 90. It's an amazing place that we hope you will celebrate during your time here and in the future. So I'd love to call our gentleman up, and perhaps he'll lead us in a closing hymn.
Please join us in Amazing Grace.
been here when